Israel views Iran's nuclear program as a direct and existential threat. For years, Israeli leaders have watched with growing alarm as Iran expands its capabilities. They believe that a nuclear-armed Iran would fundamentally change the balance of power in the Middle East. It would create a permanent danger to Israel's security, given the hostile rhetoric often directed at it from Tehran. Now, this fear is not just about a potential nuclear attack. It's also about how a nuclear Iran could act more aggressively through its proxy forces across the region, feeling shielded by its ultimate weapon. The latest intelligence has only deepened these worries. As of early June 2025, international inspectors have confirmed that Iran has accumulated a significant stockpile of uranium enriched to 60% purity. This amount, 408.6 kilograms, is alarmingly close to the quantity needed for weapons-grade material, which requires 90% purity. The International Atomic Energy Agency has also formally declared Iran non-compliant with its obligations for the first time in 2 decades. This finding was based on evidence of undeclared nuclear activities and sites, which only strengthens Israel's suspicions about a secret weapons program. For Israel, the diplomatic path seems to be failing. The ongoing nuclear negotiations, led by the United States under the Trump administration, have not produced the desired results. The US has demanded that Iran completely halt its uranium enrichment, a condition Tehran has flatly rejected. With a deadline for an agreement having passed and Iran's supreme leader dismissing a phased proposal, patience in Jerusalem is wearing thin. The Israeli government feels that the window of opportunity to act is closing and that relying on international diplomacy alone is too great a risk to take. This sentiment has pushed Israel to seriously consider a unilateral military strike. The government believes that waiting any longer might allow Iran to cross a point of no return, where its program becomes too advanced to stop. US Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth recently testified that Iran is actively moving toward developing a nuclear weapon, a statement that validates Israel's most profound fears. The calculation in Tel Aviv is that the danger of a future nuclear Iran outweighs the immediate risks of a preemptive military operation, setting the stage for a bold and perilous decision. If Israel decides to attack, its primary method would likely be a series of coordinated airstrikes. The Israeli Air Force would be tasked with flying a long and dangerous mission across hostile airspace to reach its targets. These targets are not simple buildings. They are heavily fortified and, in some cases, buried deep underground. The Natanz and Fordow facilities, for example, are designed to withstand conventional bombing. Destroying them would require precise intelligence and powerful munitions. The operation would involve a complex combination of fighter jets, electronic warfare aircraft, and aerial refueling tankers. However, such an operation faces significant challenges. A key problem for Israel is its lack of the specific bunker-buster bombs needed to penetrate the most protected sites, like the Fordow facility, which is built into a mountain. These heavy GBU-57 bombs are possessed by the United States, which has so far been unwilling to provide them for a unilateral Israeli strike. This means an Israeli attack might only damage, not completely destroy, Iran's nuclear infrastructure. The program could be set back, but it would likely be rebuilt, perhaps with even greater determination. Another major hurdle is Iran's air defense network. While Israel successfully damaged many of Iran's S-300 air defense systems in an operation in October 2024, Iran is working to repair and upgrade its defenses. This creates a closing window for an effective manned airstrike. Israeli planners must account for the risk of losing pilots and aircraft during the mission. They may use a combination of long-range missiles and unmanned drones to suppress air defenses before the main wave of bombers arrives. But the mission remains fraught with peril and uncertainty. The logistical complexity of the mission cannot be overstated. The flight path to Iran is over 1,000 miles, requiring multiple mid-air refuelings for the attack aircraft. This makes the operation vulnerable and dependent on precise timing and execution. Israel would likely need at least tacit support from the United States, perhaps in the form of intelligence sharing or access to refueling corridors. Even without direct US combat involvement, the success of an Israeli strike hinges on factors that are not entirely within its own control, making it a high-stakes gamble. An Israeli attack on its nuclear sites would almost certainly trigger a swift and powerful military response from Iran. The Iranian government has consistently stated that its nuclear program is for peaceful purposes, but it has also made it clear that any aggression will be met with force. The Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, Iran's elite military force, would be at the forefront of this retaliation. Iran's defense minister, Aziz Nasirzadeh, has explicitly warned that the IRGC would target all US bases in the region if a conflict is forced upon them, viewing the United States as complicit, regardless of its direct role. Iran's retaliatory strategy would likely be multi-pronged. The most immediate response would probably involve launching ballistic missiles directly at targets inside Israel. Iran possesses a large and diverse arsenal of missiles capable of reaching any part of Israeli territory. This would force Israel's multi-layered air defense systems, such as the Iron Dome and David's Sling, into a massive and sustained test. Even if most incoming missiles are intercepted, some are likely to get through, causing civilian casualties and significant damage to infrastructure, escalating the conflict dramatically. Beyond direct missile strikes, Iran would activate its network of proxy militias across the Middle East. Hezbollah in Lebanon, with its vast arsenal of rockets, could be ordered to open a second front against northern Israel. Pro-Iranian groups in Syria, Iraq, and Yemen could also be mobilized to attack Israeli and American interests. US military bases in countries like Iraq would become prime targets for drone and rocket attacks. This strategy aims to bog Israel and the United States down in a wide, chaotic regional war, stretching their military resources thin. Furthermore, Iran could target global commerce and energy supplies. The IRGC's naval forces could threaten or attack commercial shipping in the strategic Strait of Hormuz, through which a significant portion of the world's oil passes. This would disrupt global markets and drive up energy prices, putting economic pressure on the international community. The threat is so credible that the UK Maritime Trade Organization has already issued warnings for ships in the Persian Gulf. Iran's response would not just be military. It would be designed to inflict pain on multiple fronts, ensuring the conflict has global repercussions. The international reaction to an Israeli strike would be immediate and complex, with the United States at the center of the diplomatic storm. The Trump administration, despite its tough stance on Iran, has urged Israel not to act while negotiations are underway. An Israeli strike would be seen as a major blow to US diplomatic efforts and could be perceived as undermining American leadership. While the US would likely not participate directly in the attack with its bombers, it would almost certainly be drawn into the aftermath. Washington would be expected to provide intelligence, refueling support, and assistance in defending Israel from Iranian missile retaliation. This places the US in a difficult position. Even without direct involvement, Iran has made it clear it would hold Washington responsible. This raises the risk of attacks on American troops and diplomatic missions throughout the Middle East. In anticipation of this, the US State Department has already ordered the departure of non-emergency personnel from its embassy in Iraq and heightened security at facilities across the region. The US would be forced to walk a fine line, supporting its key ally, Israel, while trying to prevent a full-blown regional war that would endanger American lives and interests. Other world powers and regional actors would be forced to take sides, further polarizing an already tense environment. European nations, which have largely favored diplomacy, would likely condemn the Israeli strike and call for immediate de-escalation. Russia and China, who have closer ties to Iran, would almost certainly denounce the action at the United Nations and could offer Tehran greater political or material support. Arab Gulf states, while privately wary of Iran's nuclear ambitions, would publicly condemn Israel's violation of sovereignty, fearing that the ensuing conflict could spill over into their own territories and disrupt their economies. Ultimately, an Israeli strike, even if technically successful in the short term, would likely unleash a cascade of unpredictable and dangerous consequences. It would shatter the fragile diplomatic process, potentially driving Iran to pursue a nuclear weapon with even greater resolve and secrecy. The conflict could quickly escalate into a wider regional war, destabilizing the Middle East, disrupting global energy markets, and drawing in global powers. The immediate outcome might be a damaged nuclear facility, but the long-term result could be a more volatile, violent, and unpredictable world.